another at Umi Nami Farm, and thanks for watching. I know many of you probably saw our last update that we did showing what was happening in the farm back in February. It's now the 1st of April, and we wanted to do another update and show you how things have progressed since then, and also just to talk about a few other things that are going on for us in this season. So let's head to the field. So last month, one thing we showed you was some greens that we had just finished transplanting. Those that we showed you, they are now right here, all nice and fully grown. You can see these ones are just like perfect harvestable size. The rest of the row has actually all been harvested already. So we sowed these on the seed tray on the hotbed in the nursery greenhouse back on January 27th. We transplanted them February 24th, and we started harvesting from this bed kind of like March 20 something, somewhere in there in bits and pieces. And so you can kind of see the progression of how from the sowing date, transplanting date, now here we are April 1st, still with some in this bed at a perfect harvestable size. I'll also show you in a minute in another greenhouse some seeds that we direct sowed on the exact same day that we sowed these ones on the hotbed, and you're going to see a fairly big difference. So I was just saying that I would show you guys some greens that were direct sowed the same day as we sowed the other ones on the seed tray. Now, I made a mistake. It turned out that yesterday someone already harvested those ones I was going to talk about, but those ones looked exactly like these guys, which were sowed in the first week of February. So basically what you can see is that, these ones that were sowed on the ground did catch up, but they really haven't done half as well. And so, for example, you can see, even though these ones are really nice and big, these guys here are all quite small. This is likely due to an insect called symphylans. We'll show you a clip that we took last week where you'll get to see one of these insects. But basically what they do is they live in the soil and they chew on the roots of the plants. And this is very typical of symphylan damage, where you'll see that for some reason some of the plants are left alone and then others just end up being little tiny things like this, even though they're the exact same age as the ones that are allowed to get big. It's really hard to say exactly why that there's such a big difference, but generally speaking, on a broader scale, what I've noticed just anecdotally is that sometimes what we try to do is, in order to get an early start on the season, we actually till the beds back like last year, like November or something like that. We put fertilizer in the soil, we till it, and then we just cover it with a plastic sheet over the winter to keep the weeds from growing. And that works really well for soil preparation. But the problem is that symphylans like a situation where it's warm, moist, and there's lots of food to eat. That's exactly what you get under those conditions. The soil is nice and warm, there's lots of moisture, and the organic fertilizer we spread gives them plenty of stuff to munch on. And so I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's something that we need to move away from, even though it does make our life a lot more convenient in the springtime. I talked earlier about symphylans. I just found one here. This little white creature, that I believe is a symphylan. I say I believe because they say in the literature that they don't like being out in the light, but that does look exactly like the symphylans I've seen when I read up on the internet. This greenhouse also, we put the fertilizer on in the fall, and so I suspect that these guys were just happy munching on it all winter and now have risen to greater numbers. One crop that our box customers probably haven't seen in your boxes for a while is Japanese turnips. Our next batch of Japanese turnips is right here. These were sowed, let me just check when. These were sowed February 10th. You can see they're about the size of a nickel right now. And so it's probably going to be a few more weeks before they get to a size where we want to harvest them. But we're really happy to see these guys going. We're certainly looking forward to having them to eat as well. For some reason, they did not germinate very well. That's one hazard of spring sowing, is that when the soil is still cold, sometimes seeds don't come up very well. So we actually transplanted in this wasabi nut afterwards, just to fill in the extra space. You can see again, we're still having this problem of some seedlings getting really big and some of the same types of seedlings staying very small. That could be symphylans, that could be something else. I'm not sure. So one crop that a lot of people have been asking about is lettuce, and we are really trying to grow more lettuce more regularly than we did in previous years. Right now, this is our next lettuce. So you might see a while in the box program where we're not really able to provide this as much. These were transplanted in early March, and it's going to take a few more weeks before they get to a size where we really want to be selling them. But they are growing really beautifully, and we are really excited to see them looking so nice. And we're going to keep on trying to plant regularly this year so that we can have a more steady supply. So those of you who have come to the farm or have visited our booth when we used to be at the farmer's market have probably had or possibly had our yellow plums. This is the yellow plum tree right here. It's been blooming for the last few weeks. The blossoms are, oh no, there's still some buds not yet open, so it's kind of in the middle of its blooming period right now. And so this is April 1st, and so you can see right now we're at this stage with lots of open blossoms, a few blossoms still closed. And so this is the beginning of the fruit that we hope to be able to harvest in July. So I'm checking on some zucchini seedlings that we planted 2 days ago. These were transplanted on March 30th. We sowed the seeds on the hotbed back on March 16th. So these are zucchini plants. This is our first summer crop to transplant for the year. How are they doing? So one thing that we look for after transplanting crops like zucchini or cucumbers or squash, those are all in the same kind of plant family. One thing we look for is whether or not they're able to take up water properly. If they have plenty of water, you'll typically see little drops of water on the edge of the leaf. And I'm not seeing a ton, but I am seeing, I don't know if you can get it on the camera or not, but like right here, a little drop of water there, little drop of water right there, here, a little drop of water on the edge of the leaf there. Oh, and look here, right there as well, right there as well. And so it looks like they are getting established nicely. We keep them covered with this rime, partly to keep them warm at night, but actually also to keep the sun off them in their first day after transplanting so they don't get too stressed out. Even though the wind was quite chilly here yesterday, in the greenhouse when the sun hits it, it's really hot in here. But these guys look like they're happy. When they've kind of bushed out a little bit more and they start to have their first flower, that's when we'll take the remake. So I know a crop a lot of people are waiting for is our tender cabbages. This is one of 2 greenhouses that we have with tender cabbages in them. And they are looking really beautiful. So these guys were sowed on the seed tray February 16th. And transplanted March 23rd. You'll notice there's more than a month between sowing and transplanting. That's because we sowed them in fairly large cells, like kind of like about that size, as opposed to the smaller ones. And yeah, these guys are looking really nice and beautiful. We did have one die. We got some bugs chewing on this one, so it's gone. But the others are still looking quite nice. And so we look forward sometime in the next few months to having cabbages for you. So even though we specialize in Japanese vegetables, we really like to have the chance to also provide some other types of vegetables for customers as well. Here are some beets that we've been growing. We sowed these on March 10th. And so now April 1st, roughly 20-something days later, here they are, the 2 seed leaves or cotyledons, and they've got a couple of their true leaves going. There are also a ton of weeds. This is one of the real challenges growing root crops because they grow fairly slowly. The early stages, keeping them weeded can actually be a lot of work. This patch is particularly bad for weeds, but in general, that's a challenge with root crops. Once they get big, when the leaves are bigger, it won't be such a big deal. But in this stage, we kind of got to take good care of them. Our next batch of carrots is right here. These were planted on March 3rd. And I know in our last video, we showed you some overwintered carrots. Those are finished. Those are done. We've tilled the soil. We've gotten ready for the next crop. So the next batch is here. So as you can see, they're not that big yet. It's going to be a while before we have carrots again, but we're looking forward to having them back for you. Another crop you won't have seen for a while in the box program or at Fujiya is Daikon. Our next Daikon crop is right here, and the one after that is right here. These guys were planted February 24th and March 10th. You can see the February 24th guys are, you know, they've got about 4 of their adult leaves out. What's going to happen is that this little stem you see down here, you might be able to see down here, the stem, that's going to turn white and elongate upwards and also downwards to form the root. It's going to be typically from the daikon that we plant in February, it's ready sometime in May, kind of a thing. And so we've got a little ways to go before we have daikon for you guys again, but we're working on taking good care of them. And then the next batch is right here. We'll be planting daikon again probably, I'm trying to remember the schedule, probably next week. We try to plant daikon roughly every 2 or 3 weeks so that we have a steady supply. So there's a lot of crops that we aren't going to have until the summer, like June, July, August, that kind of a thing. But now is the time when we have to do the preparation. So let's head into the seedling greenhouse and see what's on the hotbed. All right, this is a space we call the lean-to. You can kind of see the structure. It's for obvious reasons for the name. Here, no longer on the hotbed, we have, these are the eggplant seedlings actually. It's really cool. You can actually see how they're going to be producing purple eggplants later. The stem itself is purple actually, which is really cool. So these seedlings take a while to grow. We start them in these little packs like this. Soon we hope to be potting them up into larger 4-inch pots and then let them grow on until they make their first flower, and then we'll transplant them to the greenhouse. Hopefully we'll show you guys more of that process as time goes by. What else do we have here? Tomatoes here have already been potted up into the next size pots. We don't grow a lot of tomatoes, but here we have a combination of some paste tomatoes for outdoor growing and also some mini tomatoes and cherry tomatoes for indoor growing. Cucumbers are also on their way. So basically, cucumbers are here. They have just recently sprouted. You can see their 2 cotyledons and just the beginnings of the first true leaf. I'm glad to see these cotyledons looking nice and big. When the plants have large seed leaves, it usually indicates a healthy seedling. These ones are still on the hotbed right now. So underneath here, we actually have an electric heating cable to give them some bottom warmth to make the soil warmer. That really helps get faster germination with those heat-loving crops like cucumbers and eggplants and this kind of a thing. These guys will not get potted up. They are in their, we sow them in their final pots. And so basically once they start to get, we look for 2 things actually. We look partly at the size of the seedling itself. So we want to see them have more of their adult leaves on them, not just this one little guy here. We also look at the bottom of the pot. You can see how there's holes in the bottom of the pot here. When we just start to see a little bit of roots showing in the bottom, then we know that they've kind of reached their limit and it's time to go. Of course, we don't want to let them get pot bound, and so we try to make sure that the place where we're going to transplant them is already ready to go on the day we sow the seeds, so that way everything lines up nicely. We don't always get the timing quite right, but that's what we aim for. So these guys, the soil is already prepared, already waiting for them in the greenhouse. We're just waiting for them to get a bit bigger. Thanks for joining us for another virtual farm tour. We are hoping to keep on doing regular updates, hopefully once a month. Our volunteer Jim has been really good about doing the video editing and stuff like that for us. And yeah, so we'll hopefully have another one for you next month. In the meantime, if you have any requests or suggestions for future farm videos, if there's something you'd particularly like to see or know about around the farm, how we do things, let us know and we'll see if we can incorporate it into one of the future episodes. All right, thanks for watching. Bye now.